Hi. Today I'm going to talk about karmic relationships and tools that I've personally used to help educate myself and to also bring immense healing and to even transcend being able to be in any more karmic relationships. So, if you're curious and want to know what I did, then keep watching. There are 8 things that I used to help myself. And some of them I did simultaneously, and then others came a bit later. And if you're curious to even know if you're in a karmic relationship, my previous video talked about some of the telltale signs to help you recognize if you are in one. And I'll link that below for you to watch if you're curious. So, the first 2 things I want to talk about go hand in hand. And that thing is prayer. The first thing is prayer. And the second one is meditation. So praying is something that I have done pretty actively since I was a teenager when I received Yeshua into my heart. And I always go into prayer, especially when I'm in uncomfortable situations. And that's when we learn and grow, when we're in discomfort. And when we are in karmic relationships, those are the lessons that we're here that are big lessons to learn. Big lessons. And I don't exaggerate that. And that's why it feels so uncomfortable and painful. It's not an accident. And you'll get through it. But I know how it feels like when you seem like a crazy person. You think you're going crazy. You don't know why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. And you feel like there is no help, but there is. Because I'm living testament to it. And now I can reflect back to my prayers actually being answered. But I was so heavy energetically that I was unable to recognize it as miracles at that time. But in hindsight, I experienced many miracles that got me to the place where I ended the relationship and started in a deep spiritual journey to love myself. And here I am, fully falling in love with myself more and more with each passing day. So stay hopeful, because trust me, help is here for you. So back to my list. So prayer and meditation. I prayed. I did not meditate at all. I was a type A personality and could not sit still for 30 seconds, much less try to not focus on anything and quiet my thoughts. But when you start out, you can't expect to meditate like a yogi if you've never meditated before. It takes practice, just like if you were going to work out because you wanted to get fit and toned, or if you wanted to lose some weight. You don't go to the gym a few times and then expect this transformation. It takes consistency. It takes intention. And meditation is how we work out our spiritual muscles. And you can't expect yourself to go from nothing to 30 minutes in a day. So be patient with yourself and do meditate. And there are healing frequencies out there on YouTube, so many solfeggio frequencies or binaural beats, so many different types of frequencies that you can play in the background while you're sitting quiet. And even if you don't quiet your mind at first, again, you'll get better at it. And in relation to prayer, even if you don't have a relationship with Yeshua, but whoever you equate God to, or even if it's nothing at all, when you speak out, the universe hears. The kingdom of God hears. The angels move on our behalf, but it's all about free will. So I definitely encourage that you speak out when you need help. And just like you talk to a friend, talk to God in that way. Talk to the angels in that way. Talk to Yeshua, to Jesus in this way. And you'll be heard. Trust me on that. And then the third item I want to talk about is journaling. And journaling can be used in two ways, and there are two ways that I used it. At first, journaling was used for me personally to write things out that I wanted to say to that person, but that person was no longer in my life. So you can use it in that way. You can use it to write what you're thankful for, because when we are going through a lot of discomfort and pain and turmoil, we are not tapped into our gratitude and being happy. And gratitude is an easy way to find joy in the small things. And when we write it down, it becomes even more immensely powerful than if we were only speaking it out. Both carry creative power, and speaking it out loud, and then journaling also manifests and creates in an even quicker way. So the fourth thing I want to talk about is really, really one of the miracles that came across my footsteps when I had no idea what it even was. And that is a book, and it's called Cosmic Love, and it's by Jan Spiller. And this book is an incredible resource that I still use to this day, that I happened to stumble across when I was walking down an aisle, trying to get into the mall from Barnes & Noble, and I just liked it because of the title, and it happened to be my favorite song with my ex, karmic partner, karmic person, and it's what brought me to pick up the book. And so I started looking at it, and it talks about your north node and your south node. And I had no idea what that even meant astrologically. And so you don't have to know either. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the basics. If you're not familiar with what the north node even means, it is what you're here to learn as a soul, to learn and grow from. These are not things that are natural to you. It's here for you to learn. And hopefully, by the time you quicken you're out of your bodies and leave and go into the spirit, you've learned the majority of those lessons. The south node is what we're good at, what we accomplished in our most recent past life. And that's where you're comfortable at. And your north node is where you're not comfortable at. This is really important, and why I love this book so much, that I have not seen anyone other than Jan Spiller put it in this context, is that in relationships, and most especially in karmic relationships, we learn a lot about ourselves. We are able to have the veil removed from our eyes if we want to make our relationships better, or sometimes, for those of us that are not conscious, we stay in the dark. And both are okay, but if you want to not be in karmic relationships anymore, or if you want to help your relationship with your karmic person evolve, then this book is pivotal to giving you black and white information that is tangible, that may not at first be comfortable for you, but it will absolutely help guide you and give you information regarding what you're here to learn, what your partner is here to learn, and the gifts that you bring to one another. And so in this book, it'll tell you, there's a little chart in the front right here, and you find, what your North Node is. And then you can, for example, I just have one of them bookmarked here. So here's for Virgo North Node. And no, I don't happen to be a Virgo North Node, but I just like this one because it's about unconditional love. Like, these people are very loving people. And it's really easy how she lays it out. And she talks about special gifts that they bring to relationships and misconceptions that block intimacy. And over here, complaints of their partners. Because if you're like me, you have complaints because it didn't feel good. You're uncomfortable. So anyway, in the book, you learn about yourself. So the section I just showed you, you are learning about yourself and the lessons you're here to learn. And then you go to the middle portion of the book, and it helps you to learn about your partner. And the book is important because you go to a website and you can calculate your connection with your karmic person. You do need to know birth details and where they were born and where what time they were born. That's ideal to get it the most accurate. And once you have that, it confirms whether or not you're soulmates. And how you know that is because you have conjunctions on your North Node or South Node. And if it's on both, then those typically tend to be karmic for both parties. And again, you don't have to memorize everything that I'm saying right now. The book is important because it will walk you through understanding it. And when I first got it, it was very foreign to me. But I loved how Jan really does a good job making it as simple as possible to help you using it as a resource. And then you find out, so like in other sections of it, once you get the calculation, it talks about the gifts that they bring you. And there are pages. It's not like it's a little bit. It's pages about what they're bringing you and how they're helping your soul to learn. And then there's another section that talks about the gifts, and I don't know if you can see it, but I'll bring it up closer. The gifts that you are bringing them. And then the very back section of the book talks about the composites. And the composite means it's the calculation of both of your North nodes and South nodes together, what they are together. And it helps you to know how to best communicate with one another. So I love it. I loved this book and I still love it. And like I said, I use it. And the great thing is that now when I know that there's a familiarity when I meet someone, I typically know intuitively because of my own intuitive gifting and my empathic skills that they're my soulmates. And if I get to know what their birth date is, I get to know them well enough to ask these things and find out what their birth date is and find out their birth time. When I use the calculator, it's really cool for me to see that I'm correct, because that I get the confirmation in when I see that we have conjunctions on our north node and our south node. And usually if there's only one conjunction, it's more of a soulmate. It's not as difficult. But when there are conjunctions on both the north node and the south node, those are the ones that are typically karmic and the biggest lessons, and sometimes the toughest lessons, but all good, all good. So the next few things, okay, let me look at my list that I used, was crystals. So I brought out my rose quartz, and this is the first crystal that I bought. And I happened to walk by a booth. I was at a convention, and it was a mind, body, spirit expo, and I never understood crystals and what they were, but I couldn't not buy this stone. And this rose quartz is energy frequency aligned to unconditional love. It's a very healing stone of love. And I remember when I got it, I was still in that relationship. I would just hold it. You know, it's shaped like a palm stone, a worry stone. Sometimes people call it that. And I would just hold it. And it brought me such great comfort in the midst of a fight or after a fight. So I definitely encourage you looking for some rose quartz or any other crystals that you might be intuitively guided because you're attracted to it. Usually when you're attracted to a stone, it's because it'll be beneficial for you. There's something energetic for you to receive healing through it. The other things that I used were energy healing. And back then I didn't know what Reiki was. And also, so I'm going to tell you the last four pretty quick. So it was crystals, and then energy healing, and intuitive readers, psychic readers, tarot readers that you trust, seeking professional help, are all things that I did back when I wasn't who I am today. And I'm so thankful for the guidance that I received. One of the times I went to go see a tarot reader because I was distraught about where I was in this relationship, and I needed answers where you can't hear God through prayer, and I wasn't at the level in my meditations and contemplation to be able to hear God's guidance, which I can today, but back then I couldn't. And so I would go and get readings periodically, and this reader told me not only that I was going to get broken up with that day, which is the only thing that stood out, but the other thing that she told me was that my energy was all muddled and that Reiki would serve me. And Reiki sounded like a foreign language to me, which it is. It's in Japanese. But it's God's healing. God's healing. And had I not recorded, because I recorded that reading, and because I recorded it and I listened to it a few months later, that's when the Reiki stood out to me. And by the way, my ex did break up with me that day. One of the many times both of us had broken up with each other so many times, but that was one of the times where, like, literally it happened that day. So anyway, months later, I went and I got a Reiki session because I happened to be going to a meditation group, a blessing group, and that's called Diksha Oneness. And the person that led it also was a Reiki practitioner. And I asked him about it, and he said, "Oh, Elisabeth, you should come check it out." And by the way, at that time, we were back together because that's what happens. What happened in that relationship, back and forth. And I went. And after that session, 2 incredible things happened to me. I wept like a baby. Actually 3. So I wept like a baby after that session. And when I got in my car, 2 things happened. I knew, even though I was fully in love with my ex, I needed to break up and end the relationship. And the other thing that happened was that my relationship with Yeshua moved from my head to my heart. And I didn't know that my relationship with him was in my head until I tangibly felt differently. I felt differently. And I didn't end up breaking up with my ex that day, but over the next 4 or so weeks, I continued to get Reiki. And yeah, it was probably a month or so later, I finally walked away to learn how to love myself. And it was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life up to that point, the most difficult. And I did it. And that might not be the answer for you, but I do encourage you to seek professional help. And if anything that I've talked about is of value to you, it would be my pleasure to assist you, to help hold sacred space for you. I am an energy healer. I am an intuitive, and you can find more information about me at my website that's also below, or shoot me an email and ask me any questions. I'm here to help and to send you love and to encourage you and to let you know you're not alone. And there is a big, bright light at the end of the tunnel. You just gotta remain hopeful and take steps to love yourself more, to pamper yourself, and to know that you matter. And sometimes our voices in our heads want to say otherwise, and especially when we're with someone that doesn't recognize it in us, and they've said hurtful, harmful words to us. And it's not about blame, but it's knowing hurt people hurt people. But you can stop the cycle because I'm living testament to it. So I send you much love. Thank you.